president of Imagine More. That's the official title, right, Seth?
That's the working title at least. If
The
we ever want
working
to
title.
fix it, we should feel free to do so. But
And
right
we will
now, that's what we got.
yes, and we'll take suggestions inside our suggestion box, which is our live box. And well, as we go along, we'll tweak it as we must.
Yeah, this is
So
all work in progress. You know what I mean? We can't be set in stone.
we are in organized chaos, if that makes
That's
sense.
exactly right. Yeah,
Yes, if that makes
chaotic good.
chaotic good.
Yeah,
So, guys, we had some crazy news this week, and I'm I've been traveling back and forth. I know if you guys didn't know that I was in Miami for family reasons, but I'm back in Tampa, and coming back, I didn't think we would be coming back to such a crazy news day,
yeah,
and
right.
things passed. I don't even know how I'm going to get it in a 60-hour session, but I am going to try to get all these news topics in and give our perspective on it, our progressive perspective on it. Um, I just thought of another news. But let's just start with the breaking news of the day. Since everyone is talking about it, it's been reported everywhere.
Yeah,
The former president has been arrested officially.
for the first time like this in U.S. history. No
First, I
president's
mean,
ever faced criminal charges like this.
it's just crazy. I mean, like, can we officially say Trump's a thug now? Because he's got a record.
Oh, he's
He's
always been.
been
He's
arrested.
a professional criminal. So,
Yeah. Oh,
it
yeah.
would,
So he's a white collared.
oh yeah, we would have known. Well, we would have had a lot more proof if he was, not doing this. That's literally how he is rich. It's just one crime after another. Pretty much, creating businesses, inflating their worth,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then going
yeah.
bankrupt, profiting off of that. So he's just, since he's a professional criminal, he's obviously knows the laws enough to work around the laws. So this
Yeah,
is the first time he's gotten held accountable for anything, really.
exactly. Now, legally, I gotta, I'm a lawyer, so I have to put on the legal hat and say that
Yes,
the charges are kind of weak against them. I'm not gonna lie.
I agree. I
Legally,
agree.
they're probably not gonna be able to do much.
I think
But
they'll
there are,
get it. I'll think they'll get him, but there won't be a lot of fallout from it. You know what I
no,
mean? I don't think they're gonna get. He's not gonna get prison time. Of course, he's not gonna get
no,
probably not much of anything other than a fine.
yeah. And the next hearing day is like in December 8th, which is unusual. And
Oh
in
wait,
the legal
what?
world.
When was it?
December 8th is like his next hearing day.
December?
Yeah, that's very unusual
Yeah,
to go
that's
6 7
wild.
months. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure at that moment it's probably like a pre-trial conference or something. So his trial's not even that trial is probably not even going to happen till like probably next year sometime.
That actually, it's possible that works in our favor, though. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
because that could be right around the time he's running for president.
Yep. And
Yeah,
he has two more investigations that are looming in Georgia. So
because this is what I'm thinking. When Bill Clinton got impeached, you know, his popularity went down during that time, but he
yeah,
recovered.
he's
You know
coming
what I
back
mean?
up.
He had enough time for people to sort of what really happened based on that, anyways. And Trump doesn't have that because it's just going to keep dragging on, and
Yeah.
especially if they keep, I
Yeah.
don't know, more investigating, more trials. That's kind of what happened with Hillary Clinton. She got she's getting investigated right before the election.
Yeah.
It's not that anything actually happened. It's just people knew she was being investigated, and people that don't commit crimes don't usually get investigated.
That's
So
true. Yeah,
we'll see
that's
how that
very true.
works.
Yeah, so stay tuned. That's going to be pressing over the next year of this next cycle. It's going to be the hot topic. I don't want us to give too much credence of it because you know what's really going to happen. He's just going to find a way to stay in the news, and that's what this is all about: staying in the news. But we are a nation of laws, and we do have to make sure that everyone follows them. So I want the judiciary to do their part, but also understand that this is also showmanship too on his
Yeah,
part. So we gotta be very careful to make sure that we make it about the laws. Um, and yeah, and that goes to Trump. I mean, like I said, that was breaking news. We talked about it a little bit, but I'm gonna spend a lot of time talking about Trump. He doesn't really get, he's not really a part of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get our message out as progressives We're done with 2020 and the craziness of 2016.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're moving forward. That's what progressives do. We move forward, and we're going to continue to move forward. Speaking of moving forward, that moves us to our next topic. Florida has gone and, well, at least half passed through the Senate the 6 week abortion ban. I don't know what your thoughts on that, Seth.
I have not been paying attention to Florida politics as much as you have, I'm sure.
Yeah, because I still
So
live here in your California.
yeah, yeah, it's pretty safe here. So that's passed, huh? Is it like, is that's today?
Yeah, well, today it passes the Senate. It still may have to go to the House, and then after
Okay.
that, it goes to the governor's desk. But here's the thing with that one: the governor reality is the original abortion ban. I forgot how long it was. I think it was like 12 weeks or 16 weeks. That one is still under the Supreme Court. Still has to review that one to see if that was constitutional. Because in Florida we have this thing called fundamental rights. It's a little bit different than most states. Well, kind of every state has this. So, one I think last week's episode or the week before that, I kind of pulled the Bill of Rights and we talked about the Constitution a little bit. Well, everyone in the every state in reality has constitutions too. So Florida has its own constitution, and every state has kind of like what they call rights, and these rights are fundamental rights. Fundamental rights is a fancy way of saying that these are rights that government can't really challenge. These are your individual rights,
Civil liberties, you know what I
your
mean?
civil liberties. Yeah, and so in Florida we have those too, and so we don't even think the abortion ban is going to pass that. This the like self the word self use civil liberties. We don't think that they're going to be successful, but they still passed a 6 week ban, knowing that's going to be challenged in the Constitution of Florida. And once again, it's the whole carousel of just crazy Tallahassee politics.
What's the
I mean,
makeup of the Florida Supreme Court?
it's conservative. It leans right. It actually was a liberal court for years, almost for like the last 20 years, but recently it's become liberal.
Okay, or become conservative recently? Yeah,
Yeah, because we have
figured
term
there's.
limits in Florida.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, we don't. Our Supreme Court can't stay for life, so they
Yeah,
can get term. So, which is a great thing. But at the same time, we do have fluctuations, and if it's a liberal or Republican, it could fluctuate a lot faster than like a Supreme Court can, the
yeah.
U.S. Supreme Court. But how does it affect you guys? I say you guys, and Seth can back me up on this. I like talking about these state topics because these state topics really, really have more of an effect on your everyday life.
Yeah, that's
Like,
true.
yeah, like
What's really changed at the federal level in the last 20, 30 years? Not
nothing.
much at all.
Yeah, and so we have to start looking at the progressive message as a local vacuum, a state vacuum, and a federal vacuum. And I feel like a lot of times, a lot of mainstream progressives, they focus more on the federal,
Yeah.
and they don't really do the work inside the local and the state. And that's really what affects people's lives the most. Like the abortion ban, that's very state dependent, state driven. And so, and all it takes is one state to do something crazy, and the other states will follow. And so we have to talk about these things and how crazy, wacky Florida is sometimes with some of these bills they try to pass to show that there's a lack of common sense and common ground. Um, the Supreme Court had a framework in place when Roe versus Wade. They had a framework that both sides hated, but it didn't give wins on either side. And I think we need to codify that and make it a statutory federally. And that's how we can get the federal government really involved into these state issues. Because honestly, the right for a woman to choose to do with their body is a fundamental right. I mean, it's just the same rights that we have as just being a black man and not being treated differently, or same right as Seth has to be who he is and not be treated differently. So we all have these fundamental rights that we can't allow the government to keep taking from us because we're not paying attention. You
Yeah.
know, and we yeah, you gonna chime on stuff?
Oh, just it's just all connected to another thing that happened today, which was there's two. I don't know what you consider them, special elections, but in Wisconsin, there's a Supreme Court justice that was elected, and she was a progressive, and a lot of people were very, very conservative about going the other way because
Mhm.
abortion plays heavily in that state, or at least the discourse, and Supreme Court justice has the most power to upend those civil liberties. So it was kind of and also, I mean, not even just abortion, but that the election, uh, like certifying elections, stuff like that. We've
Yeah.
seen what happens with Supreme Courts when they when it's in the Republican side. Like, look at the 2000 election. Pretty much, the 2000 election was one of the only elections I would actually say was stolen, and that was literally because of the Supreme Court was conservative. Because if you look at any of the recounts, it was in George Bush's. It was not in George Bush's favor. Like, if you any way they recounted that.
That hurts me so bad because we did that instead of Florida. Sorry,
Florida's always loves. They're always the center of the election drama. You know what I mean?
we
And
are,
it's
but
always, isn't it always Broward County too?
yes,
Yeah, it's always Broward County.
I like to say is Broward County is a county. It's a very interesting county.
Yeah.
Very good people in Broward County. Um,
Also, Brandon Johnson was elected to as mayor of Chicago.
he was progressive. Another win. Knock on the bell.
Technically, it was against a Democrat, but like it was against a Republican, so
He was a conservative Democrat.
it's conservative
I kind
Democrat,
of.
sure.
Here's the thing that I kind of, and this might be blasphemy in a progressive form, but I kind of like some of the conservative Democrats' position on the gun violence in Chicago. I think that that's come to a point where it's
I don't
like,
know what their position is, but
yeah, I think there's something like we have to be more tougher and empower the police in Chicago. Now, I'm usually not for empowering police because I believe that a real solution to the issues we have with our police force is through more training and through more community involvement.
yeah,
But I have to admit that the Chicago gun violence is a problem,
hmm,
and we can't ignore that as is because that I feel like as progressive when we ignore issues like that, it makes us our messaging weaker. We
yeah.
have to we have to start tackling that problem. We can't just sit there and say, "Well, we know it's a problem, but we're not going to talk about it." it
I think
that,
I think focusing on empowering the police kind of only gives them power in the situation of arresting people.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And I don't think that solves necessarily the problem. The problem isn't we have bad people on the streets and they need to be out of the streets. I think it's a social problem, and I think
mm-hmm.
it's a poverty problem, and I think it's
Mm-hmm.
like a I don't know. It's interpersonal and community just decided. You know what I mean? Like I think that's kind of the idea with the defund the police idea, which was
Yeah,
terribly marketed. It
yes,
was like, hey, instead of just pumping money into police officers' budgets, why don't we fix problems at the root? And
yeah,
I think that would be a lot better,
yeah. More
for our
psychology.
budget
Yeah,
if you don't have crimes to begin with.
yeah. More psychology, more mental health programs, more mentoring programs. These are the things that really provide solutions to the community. But like I said, I just don't like this. You taking no stance at it at all.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
like it's a problem. It's clearly every weekend there's like 4 or 5 people die in Chicago. You
Most of the
know,
problems, I mean, but and also if you think of like where crime centers in centers of big cities, it's kind of and it's always Democrat run cities, and it's not really like specifically policy positions that are causing these issues. It's kind
yeah,
of they're a city in general, and that's where all people are concentrated. And if you took all the people in the rural areas and consider which ones are criminals, stuff like that,
yeah,
doesn't seem like a big deal, but they're probably proportionate to Chicago. It's just spread out, so they're not saying, "Oh, in rural Illinois, they've got a big crime issue," because there's like one guy in
yeah,
a town, and he's like the criminal. You know what I mean? But if you have that times whatever 4 million people who are in Chicago, and you center them, then it's like, oh, it's a big crime issue. And I
yeah,
think a lot of this is also it's like to solve these issues, it's like big picture ideas, not something that the city could solve. It's like systemic problems with capitalism itself. It's not like a mayor could refinance how we fund schools and stuff like that, because it's all based on property taxes. This is big picture stuff, which is why progressives focus on big picture ideas, because societal issues stem from societal decision making. You know what I mean? So it just depends on where our laws are created in the first place. And people, why local issues are a big deal is because there's decisions made every day by local officials that people don't pay any attention to, and don't pay any attention to when they're picking who they're voting for in the local elections. So that's why it's a big deal. But it's not like every local issue could solve systemic problems. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that what you're saying that systematically, I mean, there's things we have to do on the national level, like ring in gun violence and ring in make common sense gun laws where
yeah,
it requires testing. Those are things that we need to do on a national level. But on that local level, like I said, like more mentoring programs, more
I
being
agree.
out in the community, more integration with the police force with the community, I believe will do a lot to curtail a lot of the gun violence in America. I mean, especially in Chicago. But I'm happy a progressive one, so let's not keep, let's not shoot him before he gets, going. No pun
Yeah, I'm
intended.
very optimistic about him
Yeah,
just because of how low a bar Chicago politicians have set. You know what I mean?
yeah, and it's a problem. I mean, it, it, my thing is that we have to constantly be trying to think of ways to push our country forward. And Chicago is one of those cities that they've done so many things that have pushed us forward, like minimum wage and different social programs like in that way. But we have to start talking about the things that's crucial in government, which is providing safety for people.
Hmm.
And so we can't ignore that. We have to, we have to be honest about that as progressives that we need to have a policy program locally that addresses those issues. And
Yeah,
that's my only thing about it. Since we're on the topic of guns, I'll bring it back to Florida. We just passed a permitless carry in Florida. I don't know if you heard about that out in California, but that was pretty insane too. I've been in Florida. I was born and raised in Florida, and we've never been that open about guns, especially when um, we had so many gun violence. We have the one in Broward County, Parkland. We had the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando. We had so many mass shootings in Florida. You would think that the Florida politicians would understand that maybe we should take gun violence a little bit more serious in Florida and not pass legislation that literally says it's okay. You don't need a permit to walk around in Florida, even though we've had in the last 20 years, I want to say probably the most mass shootings in one state.
at the least it's the most famous ones
The famous ones, yes.
for sure. I don't know the
So
numbers, but
yeah, so to sit there and ignore the Floridian people because you want to run for president or whatever you decide to do, and you just ignore the fact that hey, that's an issue here in Florida. Why would you pass a law that we clearly have an issue about? And to me, I feel like it was just politics. It wasn't even thinking about. It wasn't even progressive or conservative. That was just
I
straight up.
agree. I don't think that even he thought he could like fix a solution that way, because the thing about conservatives is they're more ambivalent about the fact that gun violence is happening. They don't think that we could do anything about it. So why I don't understand is why a conservative position would be like, the guns are the way they are. Our country's never going to change. It's written in the Constitution. Blah 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 blah. But then Ron DeSantis is like, no, the problem is there's not enough guns, which is just absolutely ridiculous. It's not even about more guns. It's like if everybody had a gun, then nobody would try to shoot you or something like that, which is absolute bullcrap. I mean, it's literally just posturing to the base, and there's no way that it could ever be a solution to any problem. Like
No, it's not.
the problem is guns are in the wrong hands, obviously, and there's no reason why we don't have something like gun licensing or permit for you to own a weapon. Like you can buy a gun. It would be a lot easier if you had a license, and then you don't have to have a background check every time because you could have a background check every year, make sure you're still able to have a firearm. But the idea that you're a certain age, you're permitted to own a weapon,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's insane.
as a free American, sure, but like just based on the age, you reach a certain age and that's what permits you to, because they agree not to sell firearms to somebody that's under 18, so they see the problems in having a gun in the wrong hand, but they're just that's how conservatives think, is it's just about like, he's 18, he's clearly in the right mind to own a weapon, like based on no investigation. Like most conservatives won't even support background checks.
Yeah, that's insane. And you know what's funny? I was watching this it was, I think it was one of the local stations here. It's Fox or something like that. They interviewed a guy. They didn't put him on camera, but they said they interviewed him, and he was excited about the permitless carry because guess what? He applied for a permit and he got denied.
Yeah,
He didn't have the mental. He didn't have enough. Whatever reason he was denied, the state thought that that was pretty dangerous for him to carry permanently. And he didn't get a license.
yeah,
But
that's what's
now,
funny is the people advocating for that. They're like, they're trying to take away my weapons. It's like, well, why would the government try to take away your weapons? Like, clearly, if this is such a big issue, then they probably actually should take away your weapons. You know what I mean?
yeah,
If they're already like, if you know, if they did any investigation into my background, like, it's kind
yeah,
of ridiculous.
and that's crazy. They did an investigation. He couldn't get a permit, and today he walked in there, picked up 2 or 3 guns, and was able to walk out in the street and just with guns that he couldn't even get 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
So that's the crazy nature of the politics that we're in right now. It's like we're not using common sense, because if we were using common sense, if you see the trajectory of Florida and the amount of mass shootings we've had, you would know that a bill like that would just cause more danger and more risk to people's children, their families, their mental state, because they're bringing their children into schools that they don't know who has a gun, or who may have stolen a gun from their parent, who's just laying it around. These are all things that they did not consider when they were thinking about passing a bill, because they want to be politically woke.
Yeah, there's a conservative wokeness for
They're
sure.
a conservative
It's just
woke.
virtue signaling or vice signaling, because they're just saying, "Hey, I'm kind of a piece of shit too, and you're a piece of shit. We can kind of we can agree and get along that way. You're more free to talk to say whatever dirty racist thing that's in the back of your mind around me. You feel more comfortable around those people because they're not going to judge you." That's really the conservative mindset. They just want to be like around like-minded people that aren't going to call them racist and aren't going to do this and that.
Yeah,
I think what you're talking about with guns is kind of the major issue. The conservatism is like their version of textualism, their version of fundamentalism. It's not just I mean, it's obviously a religious root. That's why it's completely tied with the religious right in the Republican Party.
yeah.
But I think the problem is like they view the Constitution that way too, and it's not even like true. It's not even fundamentalism. It gives them a self righteousness to like view whatever their view of what uh, the founding fathers wanted. It's their perspective of the Constitution, and that must be unchallenged. It's like they want a mini version of like a dictatorship of these concepts, things that will never change. And it's like we're a Christian nation. We're a Christian nation, and that will never change. It's part of
Which is crazy.
our
Like
founding fathers were blah 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 blah.
they keep saying that we're a Christian nation and we're based on that. And it's like anyone who's went to a couple of Bible study classes would know that's far from the truth. Like most of our founding fathers were not Christian. If you actually study their works,
Well,
most of them
yeah,
were. They challenged Christianity. They
they were
challenged
they were
the.
like spiritual. They were Gnostic. They were
Yeah,
like
they
Thomas
believed.
Jefferson wrote like a complete like I can't remember exactly. It's his like own Bible, like his own interpretation of all that stuff.
Yeah, like they the basis of America was founded on the Enlightenment movement of the French,
Yeah.
who truly didn't really, they weren't really Christian. They challenged everything that Christianity stood for,
Or at least
and
the religious concepts, the structuralism of Christianity, the authoritarianism. Like
yeah,
they're like there's a difference between you can tell a Christian by if they learn more from the Old Testament or the New Testament. You know what I
yes,
mean?
yeah, but
They're
yeah,
like go ahead.
that's very true what you're saying though. But no, I was just saying, I was just gonna to put a cap on it. Was just like when you look at the founding fathers, they made it very clear, very very clear, that they want a separation between the church and the state.
That's kind of what
And
made America unique.
exactly, because you should be able to worship anyone you want to when you're in America, because we have no preconceived notion of this is a Christian nation, this is a Muslim nation, this is um, a Zionist
Oh,
nation,
Zionists, yeah.
Zionist. Yes, they didn't have no preconceived notion of that. What they had was, this is America, a land of freedom, a land of opportunity, a land of free thinking. Just like the Enlightenment movement, this is a
Mhm.
free thinking country. So every time I hear the conservatives be like, "Oh, we're going back to our roots," they're like, "Well, your roots wasn't founded on Christianity. So what are you
The
talking about?"
Pilgrims, the the Pilgrims were they just want to be puritanical again. That's what they see as the roots.
Yeah, that's insane. That's insane. It's like I don't get them. It's like, why are you guys making this up? Like, I'm a Christian, and I believe in Christian principles, but I don't sit there and try to think that my Christian principles should apply to everyone in America, because not everyone in America has my background or come from my 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 family tree or my understanding of the world.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole beauty of America, is like, it doesn't matter if I'm Christian, because guess what? That's not how we make decisions in America. We make
No.
decisions on the good of everyone, and I think we're moving and the conservatives are trying to move us back to a place where it's like, I don't even know where you're moving us to, because you can't say you're moving us back, because if you are moving us back, then you have to follow the ideology of the people who founded the country, which was not based on Christianity, which they never want to talk about. They always want to just leave that part out. They just be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we're a Christian nation." It's like we just made that up because of 1980s and the whole Christian movement of the
Oh yeah.
1980s. Like that,
Ronald Reagan just ruined this country in so many
yeah. It's
ways.
just like they just like stop history right in the 1980s. Like, oh, you
Yeah.
got college educated. I know you know that this country was founded in like 1776. There was a lot of history between 1980 and 1776.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm going on a soapbox, but the reality is that is crazy. I hate when conservatives say that we're a Christian nation. It's like, no, that's not true. There's no facts at all to support that.
If you want to know how dangerous a conservative theocracy would be, just pay attention to the real critiques of Islam. Listen to all the Christians talk shit about Islam and
Yeah.
Sharia law and all the things that can happen when you are forced to believe in some version of religion based on the government and their own ideas of morals and stuff like that. It's like they also critique the Chinese social credit system. Any sort of way that the government starts, judging your personal behavior, you've really, really lost, what you had in society. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's kind of the whole point of society.
exactly. What makes America different from every other country is nobody tells you what to do. We have set of rules that we play with each other. That reality is what it is. We have
Yeah.
set of rules so that we don't kill each other, so that we don't steal from each other, that we don't do things that most human nature is designed to do. We
Hmm.
have rules in place so we don't do that. But that's it. And all this limitations that the conservatives put on us as people, and say, well, we can't be this because we never thought about this idea. It's like, well, why? Because you never thought about
That's
this idea.
literally it. It's just because they had not thought of an idea before, and they're the most brilliant person on the planet. So if they hadn't thought of an idea, it must not be true.
It doesn't make
That's
sense. And when you look at most great prospering countries, it's all about innovating. Like, America is great because we innovate. Every decade, there's something new that we're innovating. We have new ideas, but we stop innovating. I think we stopped innovating in the 1980s. In the 1990s, we just was like, okay, we're not innovating anymore. We want to go to this conservative. That's when Bush came in. We want to go to this conservative movement, not innovate. And then when President Barack Obama got in, he was trying to get that innovation back, but then quickly, they took Trump and they're trying to push us back. And it's like, what is wrong with progressing? There is nothing wrong with moving forward as a country. There are some things that obviously that conservatives may be right on. I can't name them right now, so don't give me a
I
pop quiz.
mean, I mean, they're right about they're not right about like their thesis or like,
Yeah,
but they can. noticeably point out, hey, I don't want to live in China. They censor you. The government's watching you at all times. Like
Yeah.
conservatives are still, again, I'll say they're classical liberals, at least in their root. I mean, it's all they're still a liberal society compared to 50 years ago. Even
Yeah.
conservatives will be like, they'll at least be like they're at least compared to like Muslim countries now. They don't want to ban gay like homosexuality or anything like that. Like
Yeah.
most conservatives don't want to do that. Most of them are even supportive of gay marriage at this point. Like they're
Yeah.
moving forward. They won't admit it, but
They won't
they're
admit
just
it, but
inconsistent with their values of freedom. That's all.
yeah, because if you ask me, I think the problem with conservatives now is it's a fear party. That's what
Mm-hmm.
it is. It's the
Fear's
fear
the best
that
marketing.
they do. They have this inner fear inside of them that they believe that if we're more diverse, the old social class dies away. And they're afraid of that because the reality now, those people have to work and have merit to what they do. It's not so much like my mom and my dad left me a whole bunch of money and I don't have to do anything,
Yeah.
and it's like the world is not that anymore. The world is okay, your effort, your imagination, your will set you apart from others. But to sit there and just, I call them trust fund babies, but just to be a trust fund baby
Yeah.
and think that the world's gonna be great, then yeah, you're not gonna survive in this new economy, this new way of thinking, because you never really have to work for anything. Like I
There's
always hear,
also there's also a lot of working class conservatives that did work for that. They did start their own business. They did do this, but they're so fearful and like I don't know, they're self-righteous about their ability to create something that they're going to hold back the rest of the world just to protect that one item, you know what I mean? Like I
yeah,
started this small business. I'm not going to have you raise $15 minimum wage so that puts me out of or makes not even puts me out of business, but affects my personal profits, stuff like that. Like once they get to that point, they don't remember the grind. They don't remember how hard it is to be suffering. But they're once they make it, then they're just like, all right, I'm here and I'm going to defend my property. I'm going to defend what I created, and I never want to change because I've made it. But like life is not about getting to a certain point like that.
here's the thing. I believe there's two conservatives. I think the conservatives that I was discussing is the trust fund conservatives and the
Yeah.
trust fund babies, and the conservatives you were discussing are the swing conservatives, the ones that come from the conservative party and then they go sometimes to the Democratic Party.
I wouldn't
Those
say
are
they even swing because a lot of the times it's more about like if you live in Alabama, you might be somewhat progressive, but like you're never going to vote for the Democrats. That kind of
yeah.
maybe not Alabama, but maybe more like or maybe more like a conservative in California or something like that. They're not necessarily fundamentalist Alabama conservative, where they're just more like, hey, I started a small business.
Mm.
I'm more socially moderate, blah, 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 blah. They're just sort of like pitted against the progressives, essentially. Or
I
it's
think
more
that,
like, I love America and I love the values I was raised under. And you know what I mean? So they're not always like, most of the time, I don't see a lot of Republicans as swing voters at all.
so. I think that the conservative swing voter is
Maybe on policies, but not voting Republican versus Democrat.
no. I think policies wise, you're
Okay, yeah.
right on
Then we
that one.
agree on that.
But yeah, what I mean by conservative, usually conservative policy, though that the second, excuse me, the party that I'm talking about are the ones that essentially swing from Republican to Democrat, tend to usually do it because of policy, and they tend to be the lower class conservative.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the
The
higher
Bernie Trump vote.
the Bernie Trump vote. So those are the conservatives I'm talking about, that branch. Those swing because those, like you said, they're driven by policy. They're not really driven by a fundamental belief that, we should be conservative. Their beliefs
I don't
mostly,
think they're even driven by policy. I think they're more driven by like vibe. You know what I mean? Or more like they're working class and somebody comes off super coastal elite, either the Republican or a Democrat, they're not going to vote for them. If they come off like a
exactly.
regular person that talks about their issues, their material conditions, there's right wing populism that just markets on basically social democracy while only focusing on the cultural issues that divide us. And that's
So
kind of
yeah,
yeah. Go ahead.
So those are the voters that I think we can get at if we change our
Yeah.
messaging to reflect their needs, which we have been messaging their needs. Bernie's been doing a great job of that. The problem is Bernie hasn't done a good job of relabeling what he's doing. And for me, I think that we those are voters that we can get in 2024 again, because I think Joe has the ability. Joe Biden, excuse me, President Joe Biden, he has the ability to get to those voters because he has an aspirational message. And
Yeah, I
then
think Bernie kind of jumped on his own sword, but like did it for all of us by calling himself a democratic socialist.
he
Because
did, but it
because
hurt him with that
in
goal.
two ways, in 2 ways he's correct and
Yeah,
he's incorrect because he is probably ideologically a socialist, and so am I. But
yeah,
his policies, none of the policies advocating are socialist policies. They're progressive, social democratic policies, and
yeah,
we already have a large progressive caucus in this country. And
yeah,
he probably could have done a lot better if he just called himself, I'm a progressive, I'm a social democrat, I believe in the Nordic model, just
yeah,
like Elizabeth Warren. If he marketed himself that way, he could have gotten elected. But
yeah.
he kind of did it so that socialists were no longer painted the same way. Because here he is, a socialist that Republicans say, I like him more than the other Democrats, this and that. And it kind of makes them, you know, see a socialist as not necessarily the communist, authoritarian, Soviet style. You know what I mean? He's kind of trying to change the word in the label just so that, just trying to move America past the Red Scare of the 50s. You know what I mean? So it's kind of
Yeah.
like I don't know, he's too authentic not to call himself that.
I think
But
he's yeah. I mean, I just don't think that we have to also understand politics as a marketing tool. You
yeah,
can't 1950 baby boomers are still living, and you come, you know, their association of their word association is going to be like Cuba or Russia.
mhm.
They're not going to think of Nordic
I think that's
social,
why he's trying to change, though. You know what I mean? And
but
it's a
that's going to
two-way
be
battle.
but that's going to be in a generational change. That's not going to be
Yeah,
you're not going to be able to change someone from 1950.
I agree with
So
that.
it's good to start that conversation and that talk, but we have to give people some. I always tell people there's a thing, if you guys can look it up. It's you know one of the random things I research. It's called the Maya principle. It's the Maya principle is a very simple principle. Essentially, it says that people are okay with change as long as it's the most acceptable change to them. So
True.
when you want to change
And as
something,
long as they think that they like came up with the idea, you know what I mean? People don't like to be forced into change. They like to think it's like, oh, this is an original idea.
yeah,
You know what I mean? They don't want to. They want to be like seduced into changing. They don't want to be. They don't want to be feel backed into a corner.
they don't want to feel back in the corner, and they don't want such drastic change. So when you're changing something culturally, and you're trying to change minds like the progressives are, we have to understand that we cannot come from a position of using hard terms like social democrats because hard terms like that already has association with it. And
I think you have to preface things because I think that these terms can be part of American culture, and the main reason they're not is because we don't have, a large social democratic like caucus. Like most of the other parties in Europe are all called Social Democratic Party, Labor Party, Social Democratic Party. You know what
but
I
see,
mean? That's
Labor Party, there's nothing wrong with Labor Party.
but it's the exact same thing. But I think that's
I
a
know
better marketing word.
it's a better marketing word.
Yeah,
I'm not saying they're saying that their positions are different. I'm just saying that they market a different aspect of it because when you look
yeah,
at when you use the word socialism, there is words associations with those words. We can't
yeah.
sit there and say, well, those words we know what it means. Well, the conservative at home doesn't know what it means.
Well, that's what social
Yeah,
democrat is better because, well, first of all, the American Democratic Party is a social liberal party. They're
yeah,
not just liberalism; they're left liberals, social liberals. That's pretty much what social means. It means equality of opportunity, society before profits, essentially. But it's not a socialist economy. It's a democratic party. They believe in democracy. They believe in economic democracy,
yeah.
and there's a social democratic. So it's more like that also means reform and like
Hmm.
progressing. You know what I mean? Progressive is kind of it's kind of such. I think it's too vague of a word sometimes. Where anybody can call themselves a progressive. Hillary Clinton thinks she's a progressive. You know what I mean? The Republicans think they're progressive. Teddy Roosevelt called himself a progressive, and he was definitely also conservative.
Yeah,
Progressive just means it's more vague. You know what I mean? And
more
I don't,
progress.
yeah, I feel like pretty much any liberal will say, "Yeah, I'm a progressive," and then you ask actually like break down the policies. They might not be so much economic progressives. So it's kind of like I don't know. It's too vague to me.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. All
I
right.
do think Labor Party sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I think we need a Labor Party in America.
Yeah.
The Labor Party works. We're getting
Democratic. Well, Minnesota, the Democratic Farmer Labor Work, or that's what it's called, the DFL, Democratic Farmer Labor Party. They have a
why don't
completely
we,
different party in Minnesota.
why don't we do like the Democratic Labor? Oh, you said Democratic Labor Party,
It's the Democratic Farmer Labor Party, but yeah,
DFLP.
something
Uh,
like that. I don't. It's not the P. I think it's either maybe it's Democratic Labor. No, it's Democratic Farmer Labor. I'm pretty sure.
DFL. I don't
But
know. I
but
can
the Minnesota Democrats are pretty good.
It's a yeah, they're not bad. So let's get off this topic a little bit
Yeah.
because I want to move on to this last topic I had for us today.
Okay.
Is the Disney Ready Creek saga 2.0. Guys, I'm talking a lot about state politics this today because it's been crazy. Obviously, our governor is running for president, so he gets
Do you think
media.
he's gonna
Oh, he's running for president.
100%? Because he's
Yeah,
kind of going down.
but Trump is going to kill him. But he can run for president.
Okay.
Sure,
Okay.
he has aspirations. Has aspirations, but
Yeah, but do you think that maybe he'll see all the momentum going towards Trump, and he'll be like, okay, I'll run in 2028 because then once Trump's
yeah,
out of the way,
he's
maybe he'll
he's super,
definitely run for president. But you 100% sure it'll be this cycle.
he's super calculated. So I could see him running for president and then bowing out early
Oh, you're right. You're right.
and then jumping as a VP to
You're,
Trump.
I don't think he'll be VP ever. I think he will. No, Trump would not want him to be VP.
I think so because Trump only has 4 years left.
Yeah, no, I think DeSantis will definitely be the successor, but I don't think DeSantis would it would be such a like a cuck move, you know what I mean? For him to be like, okay, I'll be your number two, buddy, and then he's got to become like Ted Cruz. I think Ron
Uh,
DeSantis knows that he would be better off just staying as governor and then being the next. He's kind of if he really wanted to do that, he'd be kissing Trump's ass more. He's kind
that's
of
true.
distancing himself a little
The
bit just
problem,
because he wants to be the Trump that doesn't like Trump.
yeah, but the problem is he's at 20. He has to wait to 2028. I think his terms
He's
up.
young.
And he is young, but his terms up. I think, and he just got elected again, right? In 20,
I think so.
20 yeah. So he has. You're right. The timeline adds up because as soon as he's done with the office, he can go straight to run for president.
I think he kind of flamed out a little bit unless Trump really gets unpopular again. If Trump maintains his current popularity, I don't think DeSantis will jump in. I think he kind of lost
I
the
can see that
debate
scenario
a little
too.
bit.
I mean, like, because it's really, really hard to win a midterm election in terms of president. It's really hard to dethrone. Like what Joe
Mm.
Biden did with Trump and beating him after 4 years of an office is almost unheard of.
Yeah,
And it's really hard to do that. And
you
I
have to
think,
really shit the bed as a president.
yes, you really do. Because honestly, I don't even think Biden did it. It's more so that we were tired of Trump as a country. We're like, look, man, this is too much. You're on the news every single day. Like, it's not normal for the president to be on the news every single day. And I think we got Trump worried, and it was like, okay, he's got to go. And so that's kind of what helped Biden a little bit because it was like, hey, everybody knows Joe Biden. He ain't gonna mess it up. He's just gonna keep it going,
Yeah,
the status quo. So I think that's what that was. So for him to now turn around and do it to Biden will be very hard because it's like we've already know what you're about. We know,
yeah.
it's not. I think it's going to be some guy that honestly, on both sides. I think Biden's going to get primaried. I think Trump might lose a Republican nominee. I don't know if it's going to be DeSantis that actually beat him, but I think both of them lose because they're both old. And
I could definitely see a new person emerging
I see both. I see new people emerging from both parties and taking down and going after each other. Now, the primary of the president, that's going to be a little bit harder to try to primary a sitting president. But
Yeah, I think it really depends on. I don't think it depends as much about on his actions as it does like his mental state and how people view him and like his capability. I really think that the only thing that people really dislike about Biden is that they don't trust his cognitive abilities, stuff like that. And
yeah,
if he's
just too old.
just noticeably even more old in 2 years, I just can't see his advisors telling him to run. I can see them being like, you can pick your successor or something like that.
I just don't want. I just think America doesn't want him to die in that White House.
No, of course. I mean, not only because
And,
obviously human reasons, but I
well,
don't
yeah,
think
human
any
reason. Yeah,
Democrat, other than like maybe a quarter of Democrats, would not want. Nobody wants Kamala Harris. Okay,
yeah, and I think that scares a lot of Democrats because
she
they're
is a
like,
moderate, but she doesn't have the strength of a moderate being electable because she's still perceived as being super far left, even though she's not. She's definitely an establishment Democrat.
I just don't think she's very likable.
That's what I'm saying is that's the thing about moderates is they're supposed to appeal to moderates.
Yeah,
She's not the progressive voice to lead a party
yeah.
or to gain support or to gain any sort of momentum, and she doesn't have the establishment. All she has is establishment ties,
Hmm.
and even the establishment is not a fan. So the only
Yeah,
thing that would make her like the perceived nominee would be Biden, like just being unwilling to like get like replace her or like just endorse somebody else or even be
well, he
impartial.
won't.
If he
He
felt
won't.
like because he chose Kamala Harris that he's locked in, he's got to like support her to be the next nominee, then we're kind of screwed. But
I don't think he's gonna take off the ticket. Nah, that's
yeah, I
seems
don't
bad.
think he will either.
He
He's
won't
he's
do
not
that.
strong
But
enough to do that.
yeah, he's not strong enough to do that.
I
But I
do
think
think,
that
or I think Trump is definitely going to pick a woman though. I think it's be. I personally think it's going to be Kristi Noem, governor of North Dakota. It's going to
maybe
be, or maybe Tulsi Gabbard, somebody like that. Somebody
now
that he
that would
sees.
be a very interesting ticket.
That's what I'm saying.
Tulsi
Somebody
Gabbard
he
and Trump.
sees
That's a scary ticket, honestly.
Trump Gabbard.
Yeah, that's a very
I think
scary
so
ticket.
too. I think there's
Yeah,
enough heterodox centrist people that wouldn't vote for anybody except for Tulsi Gabbard on the ticket, like
yeah,
the Tucker Carlson populist kind of people.
yeah. That's gonna be very hard. That'll be a hard ticket. And I think if that's a ticket, Trump. I'm sorry, Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, will have to do something else because
because
he
because
can't run.
I think Tulsi Gabbard, as nefarious as a lot of things she stands for now, like basically just a grifter, just about getting her, like elevating her voice and making a little cash out of it. I
Yeah,
think that
because
she's a good politician. Okay, she's very smart and very good at manipulating.
yeah, and she's kind of too. She's seen as an independent, honestly, and Trump is kind of seen like an independent. I mean, I know people say
Yeah,
he's a Republican, but he's really independent.
yeah,
So
yeah. He's independent the way Bernie is.
yes, exactly. So
He's not controlled by the party, but he is affiliated.
exactly. So two independent people. That's going to be a very scary ticket. I would hope if that is the ticket.
I really think that that's what Tulsi Gabbard's at least shooting for. I feel like her entire grift is actually about becoming vice president, and I think that she's narcissistic enough to think that she's like gonna like bring Trump to the center or something like the reasonable, enlightened center. I think that she's like, I'm gonna change the entire Republican Party, so I'm gonna join them and bring them along with me or something. Some,
I don't think she can do that though. She
of
can't.
course
Yeah,
not.
that would be terrible for her. She has
But
to
I
stay as
do think that
independent lane.
that's what she's going for.
Yeah, she's a politician. That wouldn't surprise me. She is trying to do something like that.
Yeah,
But she has to stay in the independent lane. She can't jump into the art clown because people hate that. The number one thing people
yeah.
hate in politics is when you switch parties. It's
Yeah,
like,
she is still independent, even though she only shows up on Fox News and right wing hosts. But it's such a calculated reason, like so obvious. Well, it's also could be because of grifting, in that YouTube gets way more content from conservative content creators because of all the donors and stuff like that.
yeah,
Like that's like people talk about conservative censorship on YouTube, but like I don't know. I get a lot of suggested videos from conservative people for no reason at all, and it's just because I don't. I'm pretty sure the algorithm has proven that it actually like favors conservative voices, at least against progressive voices. Like I
yeah.
think,
Of course. I see way more conservatives than I see progressives.
yeah,
way more.
It could just because they're better funded and they have better marketing, but there's reasons for that.
No. Going back to our Disney Creek thing because I went off. I
Yeah, we
wanted to,
do that.
one cool thing about that happened this week was I don't know if you guys knew. I'll give you guys a back story of this, but DeSantis, got in this big fight with Disney over the LGBT Q. Don't say gay bill, which is that's what it's commonly known as, and
Yeah.
pretty much it takes a lot of rights from teachers to be able to give the ability to speak on issues that can help young people discover who they are. And so Disney, at the time was like, look, we don't really like this bill. Like, do not come out and endorse this bill because it's like this is no, we're not standing for this bill. And Ron DeSantis got, went to him, put on his Trump hat, and it was like, well, no one tells Florida what to do. We're the we just do whatever we want, apparently. And so what he did was he stripped Disney of all their ability to control the land because a lot of people, if you've ever been to Disney World here in Florida, Orlando, it's Disney World. It's literally Disney World.
Yeah, that's
Orlando,
kind of the only thing associated with Orlando.
yeah, it's like right next to like Disney, but it's Disney World, and they own all that land right outside Orlando, and they really can do whatever they want on that land, and the state of Florida can't tell them anything.
It's kind of
Um,
wild, honestly.
Yeah, right. And for a corporation to have that kind of ability, but yeah,
Yeah.
so they own that land, and they really like they had their own police station, they had their own fire station, it was like
That's the
their
kind
own
of stuff that
city.
conservatives want, though. They want us to deregulate the government so that private corporations are running everything and everybody lives in
Yeah,
a town just of the company that they work at, like factory towns, you know what I mean?
yeah,
That idea is ridiculous. There's like everybody could work or they could live in the town or the company that they work in and like, oh, it's just a shorter commute to work. You want to live in a Chevron town? It's I don't want that future.
yeah. No, we don't want that future, but Disney already has it in the present,
Yeah.
and so Disney had this thing where they're like, look, we don't like that bill. Do not pass that bill. Do not even endorse that bill. The Senate says we're going to pass it. They passed the bill. Long story short, DeSantis got upset with Disney. They said, you know what? We're stripping you of all your access to the land and your control of the land, and we're going to put this board in place. So Disney, most government lawyers are like, what, first year out of law school, second year out of law school, public interest lawyers. But Disney lawyers are corporate lawyers who've been practicing for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And so Disney lawyers, what they did was they had a meeting, like a public meeting, because in Florida we have something called the sunshine laws that our meetings have to be public. And so it was a public meeting, and essentially they came out and passed a law during that meeting that allowed Disney to own the land for as long as King Charles, the, the British, the king,
Yeah,
the
the
British
current
king,
king.
yeah, as long as his descendants are alive.
What? Like all of his descendants?
All of his descendants
Like
are alive. Disney will
unless
own
we
the land
wipe out the entire royal family, that means forever.
forever, pretty
Wow.
much. They own that land,
You know how many
and then
descendants Genghis Khan has?
we're not gonna talk about Genghis Khan and his sexual habits there.
Yeah.
No, so yeah, so Disney and their so they put this thing that says we own this land as long as King Charles' descendants live, and then after the last of his descendants die, we own it for 30 more years after that, and then
Intellectual
after that,
property.
we own it for 20 more one we own it for 21 years after the 30 years we own it after the last descendant died. And no one knew they did this until the board, like Ron DeSantis board, showed up to work, and then they looked at this the bylaws of the community or that area, and they were like, "Wait, we don't have any power.
Yeah.
Like Disney owns this," and so they made a big stink about it in the news, and like Disney was laughing about it. Disney was like, "Look, we have the right to free speech. We're a company. We're people too. And we didn't want that bill. We told you not to pass that bill. You passed that bill. Then you want to try to of strip our land, and we beat you too. We beat you at your own game." And I just thought that was really, I mean, Bob Iger, the mouse, Mickey Mouse. I thought that was really, really like that's how you stand up for your principles and your morals and your values. If you believe in something, you do it. You stand by it. You know, don't. It's not may not be popular in conservative Florida right now because right now we're a conservative state, but you know your principles and your morals don't change. And Disney stood up for their principles and morals. They said, "Hey, we don't like that anti-gay language you guys are doing, anti-homophobic language, and we're going to stand up to you." And that's what I guess I want to leave you guys with that message. And like,
I think that's an interesting juxtaposition though, because you can both see it as like, oh, look at this progressive fight that Disney fought to like protect gay rights, but it's also a story of like a corporation having way too much fucking power over the government. And
so
I
you sound
think
like
that's
Ron DeSantis right now, Seth.
well, no, but it's true. Like it's
Yeah,
not about the gay issue, but it's about
yeah,
the fact that Disney has the fucking Florida government like they control the government, like at least in this situation. Like there's nothing they could do. They wrote their own intellectual property rights until
yeah,
like infinity, and that's a government granted property right for them to
yep,
not be able to interfere. And it's just based on like just dumb policy positions on both sides. It's like
yeah,
that's if you think the progressive position is like Disney should be able to, I don't know, just the way they're operating. It's a little messed up, but like
I don't think
the
Disney
thing I don't trust about is that Disney is they're like a liberal corporation where they, I mean, okay, Disney is a lot of things and it's a lot of people, but the reason there's something called rainbow capitalism where you can get away with a lot of shit if you just pretend if you just talk like you're socially highlighting progressive concepts like Colin Kaepernick is the face of Nike, but
yeah,
like it's really about liberal ideas are like 55% progress or popular versus conservative. So we side more with the
yeah,
socially liberal side. So we're gonna make more money that way. That's
yep,
literally all it is. And they're not really that principled in my opinion. I think they just want more power.
yeah.
He's a CEO. He's not really concerned about gay rights as much as he's concerned about his corporation being able to continue having the power that they have.
Well, you're probably right with his intent.
Yeah,
I'm not going to deny your intent, but I just like the fact that people are fighting for things that progressive are fighting for.
I agree.
Yeah, but you're right. Are there corporate America, and they have the intent to say or do things that are in favor of their company?
Yeah,
100% agree with you. I mean, if they're not, they're bad in business. You know,
that's true.
so I'm not 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to leave everybody on that note that at least for this week, one positive message is like, hey, if you believe in something, you want to fight for something, stand by your principles, stand by your morals, and continue to fight.
Yeah, I mean,
And
we had a great day. We put Trump behind bars, not technically, but kinda. We got a Supreme Court Justice W in Wisconsin. We got a somewhat progressive mayor of Chicago now. Things are looking up. So
yeah,
let's see what this country can do.
we're exactly. And I love that stuff. We'll see what this country can do. We'll see you guys next week. We're signing off a little bit early, 2 minutes early, which is kind of weird for us.
Crazy.
Yeah, but we're signing out a little bit early. But we'll be back next week, same time, 8 o'clock Central, 11 p.m. Eastern. We like to keep this kind of like a dark night show where we can be a little bit loose with the language, not very
Yeah.
formal. And
Yeah.
so
The
we,
Dark Knight. That's us.
yeah,
Just like
after,
Batman.
after Dark Progressives. Oh, found a new name for the show.
You said
After
Dark
Dark Progressives.
Progressives.
After Dark Progressives.
Oh, okay. That sounds kind of cool. I
Yeah,
fuck with
put in
it.
a little brainstorm. Put in a little brainstorm there.
Yeah, we'll see how
All
that
right, guys.
deals.
All right, guys. We'll see you later. See you next week.
All right. Have a good night, guys.